your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
Well, come on along and welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyles here for you. Got Jake at the wheel. Hope things are going well for you. Big program in store, as always, on the program today. How about Brian Evans, Indiana Hall of Famer, former Indiana basketball player. Can't wait to talk to Brian. Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier will stop by as well. Plenty to talk about. Hit us up on the text line if you like, 812-269-6367. Let us know what you're thinking about. There's always basketball to talk about. There's always something we can pick on. Recruiting, this, that, and the other thing. Baseball is off to Omaha as they are preparing to open up play in the Big Ten tournament. That begins tomorrow. I think Indiana's game is at 5 o'clock. They play game 3. I'll have to confirm that exact time, but they do play game 3. Hope they get good weather out there, man. In Omaha, you never know what the hell's going to happen. Hopefully that weather stays good, and hopefully they get a little taste of playing in Omaha and can make it back there. That would be good for the Hoosiers. Not a lot going on in the world of basketball right now because it's a dead period. But you still got people talking and this, that, and the other thing. A lot of chatter on social media about recruiting, of course. Indiana is, 2 for 22 in their offers in 2019. So that makes them, 0 for 20 to people that reside more than 60 miles away from Bloomington. Not sure if that has anything to do with it, but it is what it is. A lot of chatter on Twitter, people thinking, you see a lot of Indiana doesn't need 5 stars. They don't need the one and dones. They need this and they need that. They need 2 and 3 stars. You see a lot of that. Develop them. Well, that's okay if you develop them. What do you think that's what goes on, or players being developed under Archie Miller? I'm not talking about just in Indiana. I'm talking about over his career. It's a question, not an indictment. But, there are a lot of people wondering, well, why aren't people coming to Indiana? Well, I think there's probably more than one answer to that. But I think there are probably a few answers of certainty. A lot of those kids, they have plans to play in the NBA. And the last I checked, Archie Miller hadn't sent a single player he'd recruited to the NBA yet. Now, of course, everybody's going to say, well, that's going to change with Romeo. Yeah, but that's a caveat. There's a asterisk next to that one. He was a projected top 5 pick before he ever got to the Indiana campus. So those kids look at that. There's one reason. You've got the big Penny Hardaway effect. And now you're seeing that same thing at Michigan. It's just amazing to me how idiotic people can be. Not Jalen Rose. Is that right? Jake? I always get names mixed up.
Maybe. I mean, Jalen Rose went to Michigan.
Yeah. He said that Juwan Howard would be a great choice because he could get Michigan back to that culture, because he pointed out that not one single McDonald's All-American had been landed. Well, wow, that's really shows you how damn good of a job John Beilein did. He didn't have a single McDonald's All-American, but damn, he sure made 2 national championship games. He won 2 big titles. How many did Jalen Rose win in the Fab Five? Let me see. Let me count this one and that. Oh, yeah, 0. A big fat 0. They won nothing. The Fab Five won nothing. They didn't even win their own conference. That went to Indiana. And today's guest, as a matter of fact, Brian Evans and crew, they won the Big Ten. They beat the Fab Five. But to say that Michigan needs to get back to this culture, oh, you mean that culture that got them banned by and sanctioned by the NCAA? Is that the culture you're talking about, Jalen Rose? Penny Hardaway's having a great recruiting class. But guess what? The last time I checked, see, how was Duke's class last year? I can't remember, Jake. How'd they do? Did they have any? They had some decent players on that team, didn't they?
A couple. I can't think of the one guy.
The Neon or
Zion.
Oh yes, Mount Zion, Zion and company. Of course, we're being facetious. They didn't even make the Final Four. But Jalen Rose thinks that Michigan needs to get back to this culture. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Has he not been paying attention to what the hell John Beilein did at Michigan? I just cannot believe such an idiotic statement could come from someone like that who worked at the level he did and played at the level he played at. That's just unbelievable. You would expect that from somebody who's who's uninformed, who doesn't really know much. But this is the guy who made a living playing the game and now makes a living talking about the game. Pretty idiotic statement, in my opinion. Eric Gordon was back in the house yesterday at Assembly Hall. You saw him on Indiana basketball page shooting some hoops. Man, he was knocking down threes like he was shooting free throws. And I'm not kidding. I don't even think he was lifting off of his feet. I made a post that by today's standards, he's got 3 years of eligibility left. I mean, he's been paid by somebody else. The Houston Rockets have been paying him, so he should be good to go to play in college. I mean, the NCAA, they wouldn't mind. Right, Bill Self? Thank you, Brandon Dawkins, for those recruits. Feeling salty today. Feeling salty.
All these flavors, and you choose to be salty.
Well, you know.
Actually, it was Chris Webber that was talking about bringing Juwan Howard back for the culture.
Well, the one I read was Jalen Rose.
But
Chris Webber also said the same. I think he said pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. Jalen Rose said he wants Juwan Howard as the coach, but he did bring up other points besides that, which are fairly valid, I think. I mean, Juwan Howard has been an assistant coach in the league for a long time at Miami.
So his recruiting prowess is
No, I'm not saying that, but
right. No, I know. I'm just pointing that out.
But he is a Jordan Brand athlete. I mean, Jordan Brand doesn't have as much cachet as it once did when Michael was playing, but Michigan is a Nike school. He did go there. I mean, it's the same thing as Indiana fans. What I'm thinking most comparative is probably a lot of Indiana fans wanting a guy like Steve Alford to come. I think most of it is...
Yeah, but are the fans calling for this? Are the fans calling for this? Or these type Chris Webbers and Jalen Rose and these guys who have a much bigger platform? They seem to be making the noise. I don't know that the fan base is screaming for this. Now, and I get what you're saying, and it makes total sense.
I don't know. I'm not a Michigan fan.
But Steve Alford at least played for a national champion. They won something.
Well, I mean, that Michigan team went to a Final Four, and that was probably up till 2013 Michigan's best team ever. So, I mean, I understand where, and those guys play with him, so I understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, but to say that, for any of them to say, need to get Michigan back to this culture. What culture? The one that John Beilein didn't make by winning all the things that he won, the 2 Big Ten titles that he won that they couldn't win?
Yeah. I mean, that was Chris Webber, and there's a reason why nobody watches Chris Webber NBA games whenever he does.
I'm telling you, he is the worst.
He's not very good.
He is terrible. I don't know how in God's green earth he has a job doing what he does. He is gosh awful. I mean, he is as bad as anybody that's on television, in my opinion. He's bad. I'd love to. They should just let Charles Barkley talk the whole time. It doesn't even matter if he's watching the game. I'd rather listen to Bill Walton go off on his soliloquies with Dave Pasch.
I love Bill Walton games.
I do too. I absolutely do. I think he's hilarious. He cracks me up.
If you really pay attention and get through all the filler that he talks about, he's got some gems regarding the game of basketball. Really, I mean, you
think that dude doesn't know what the hell he's talking about?
Yeah,
that's what cracks me up. People get lost and think that he doesn't know what he's doing because he's off talking about this stuff. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows exactly what's going on the whole time. And right in the middle of one of those soliloquies, he'll bust out one of those gems that you're talking about. He's not everybody's cup of tea, and I get that.
He's also got to make Pac-12 games entertaining, which is kind of hard to do.
Exactly, that's a perfect point. You got to do something. Who the hell else is going to watch games at 10:30 at night between a league that's not that great? I think he's hilarious, but yeah, God, Chris Webber is just terrible. I don't get it. Tim texted in. Well, this was yesterday. I missed that one. So I guess if LeBron James decides to coach after basketball, he will be able to recruit all these 5 stars just because he was in the NBA. Now, LeBron probably can. Yeah. Tim, believe it or not. Yeah. I think that's a problem, though, Tim. They do. They commit to – it's almost like hero worship. It's not product on the court. It's not a proven ability as a coach. And I'm not saying he couldn't coach. I have no idea. I mean, hell, I think he pretty much – I don't know how much he's being coached. I mean, how much you think he's listening to a coach? Has every coach that's been under him been fired?
Except Eric Spoelstra.
So, yeah, it's you can make the big splash, man, but you got to swim in the water.
That's the thing. I think water finds its level. I mean, Memphis is in a league that's not going to be very competitive. They're going to sweep through that league pretty easily. And once they get to the tournament, it's going to be a completely different ball game. So, I mean, they may do really well. I don't know, but
because here's what's going to happen: they're going to get into the tournament. They're going to play teams that are coached by veteran coaches at some point. They're going to play teams that have veteran players at some point. And if Duke having a veteran coach, a proven coach, but having a team full of freshmen, it's a difference maker. It is a difference maker. Experience matters. Look at who some of the players were in the Final Four last year starting. They were not 5 stars, man. They were 2 and 3 stars. But they were 3-year players. They were veteran players. Well-coached veteran players. Makes a difference. Makes a difference. Trendon Watford made his decision. Of course, going to LSU, as had been expected. No surprise in that. That's just that's a whole nother can of worms. Wish him the best. I guess it was a strong-ass offer. Couldn't turn down. The fact that he's going to play for a coach who is undoubtedly going to be under an NCAA investigation at some point. Maybe they pretty confident that's not going to be next season, which, knowing the NCAA, wouldn't surprise me at all. He's only planning on being there for one season. He wants to get to the league. And he thinks Will Wade can get him to the league. And he's probably right. It's not a question of that. It's a question in other areas that apparently is starting to matter less and less, which is sad on a whole different level. We got a lot to get to on the show today. Like I said, man, we're looking forward to Brian Evans, Indiana Hall of Famer, former Hoosier basketballer. Played on some great teams for Indiana. He won a Big Ten championship over the Fab Five, I might add. Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier joins us as well. Stay tuned. We got a lot more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Back with more right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat.
And I'm Justin Kalen with Indiana Sports Beat.
Justin, what's your favorite show?
It's got to be Indiana Sports Beat, but I'm not ever sure where to find it.
Well, you can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become one in a million.
All right, crew, let's get her dug.
Honey, want to give me a hand? I'm planting that tree, remember?
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 business days before any digging project, so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. This includes natural gas and petroleum pipelines, electric, communication cables, and water and sewer lines. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
Hi, this is AJ Moye, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
And when I touch you, I feel happy inside. It's such a feeling.
Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle, of course, coming through from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Hope your day is rolling well. If not, hopefully we can get it jump-started here. We got a good friend of ours, Joe Healy from Baseball America, joining us. Joe, how you doing, brother?
Pretty good, Jim. I appreciate you having me on. Best time of the year in college baseball, so excited to talk about it.
Just very happy to have you because, man, I know this has to be a busy time for you. It is the Kentucky Derby of college baseball seasons right now. And, man, you're out and about. Fortunate enough to meet you while you were covering Indiana not too long ago. But you get to see as many teams as probably anybody, a wide variety of college baseball during the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things I love about the job and doing this is, being able to kind of dig below the surface and go see a lot of different teams, a lot of different conferences, a lot of different players. There's good college baseball all over the place. You just got to go and find it. And I love doing that weekend after weekend.
Yeah, and baseball is a sport that is really different than a lot of other sports because it is kind of predicated on the weather. And to really accentuate that point, I call it the Sun Belt states. But those schools that are in warmer weather climates, you tend to find a lot of the better schools in that area. Where a school like Indiana, who's coming on and a program that's growing, but it's more difficult for teams like that to get up into that upper echelon.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and that's just never going to change. There's some movement to move the college baseball season back, but we're never going to get a May 1st start date, for example. That's just not going to happen. So weather's always going to be an issue for schools in the Big Ten, or even it trickles down, obviously, to leagues like the Missouri Valley Conference, and which is a good baseball league historically. But in the face of that, the Big Ten's done a really good job turning itself into basically a power conference. Obviously, it's a power conference among the very best in football and in basketball, for example. But in baseball, they're right there. I mean, they're probably never going to get 10, 11 teams into the tournament like the SEC challenges to do. Even with the ACC routinely getting 8, 9, 10 teams, that's never probably going to be a thing in the Big Ten. But I mean, this has gone from being a two-bid league, a solid two-bid league, and the league might have got 3 teams in if things broke just right. I mean, now you look at it every year as it's kind of a bare minimum 3-bid league if things don't go particularly well. And if the league has a really good year, you get 5 teams in and you challenge to get a team to host a regional. And I think we'll probably see a day in the not-too-distant future where, they push to get 6 teams in and break their own record there. So the quality across the league has gotten better and better year over year. And that's expressed in a few different ways. I mean, the talent of the league has never been better. The competitiveness from top to bottom of the league has never been better. And the facilities on top of that, I mean, just in the last decade, just about everybody's done something really major in the facilities part of it, whether it's a new stadium or an indoor facility or something, on campus as far as training and development goes. Everybody's got something cooking from that standpoint, and that's absolutely wonderful for the league.
Yeah, you speak of facilities. I know at Bart Kaufman Field, since that was built a few years ago now, but in Indiana. Prior to that, they played at Simbauer, and it was basically a high school field. And now it's must-see TV. There are a ton of people out this weekend. As a matter of fact, it was pretty much capacity crowd for the last couple of days at Bart Kaufman. But there have been a lot of games where I was at there, and the crowds are really full. People enjoy college baseball. It's a great inexpensive entertainment that you can get, but especially when the product is good on the field, the people will come out and watch.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things I've been most impressed with. I did not grow up in Big Ten country. I grew up in the South and, moved up here several years ago. And one of the things that really kind of impressed me right off the bat is look, when the weather gets good, people will come out to see these teams in the Big Ten. I mean, I've seen it not just at IU, but just about everywhere I've gone in the Big Ten. When the weather is warm and the product on the field is good, which now more often than not it is, people turn up. And that shouldn't be a surprise given how, these fan bases come out to support the other sports that the Big Ten has out there. So that's not really a surprise, but I think there's this misconception that there's just not the support for Big Ten baseball by and large. And again, Big Ten schools are not drawing 10,000 people like they do at LSU or Mississippi State, for example. But these are really solid crowds just about all across the league. And that's just another way in which, this league plays some pretty good baseball right up there with the best conferences in the country.
And talking about Indiana, right now they're leading the country in home runs. So that's a pretty big stat to be leading in for a school that is not part of that power play, as you'd speak. But I think they got 90 home runs on the season right now.
Yeah, and it's not just one guy either. I mean, they've got some pretty gaudy numbers in there. Matt Lloyd, chief among them, but, Cole Barr, 16 home runs, Matt Gorski, 12 home runs, Scotty Bradley's got some power, even a little bit further down with guys like Grant Richardson, Elijah Dunham, guys that maybe don't come right off to the top of your mind right off the bat, so it's not they're not predicated on one guy just crushing a 3-run home run. They can get it from just about anybody in the lineup, and there's a little bit of a feast or famine nature to the offense. That that as well as anybody having covered them. There's a lot of talk about that, but I tend to not worry too much about that kind of thing, just because look at the results. There's been a lot more feast than there has been famine this season, and sometimes it maybe the optics of it aren't great because the strikeouts are also high. That kind of comes with that, but more often than not, this offense has been really, really good this year, and it's kind of piled opposing pitching under just huge home run numbers, and I think that bodes well for the tournament setting. Particularly in the Big Ten tournament and in the regionals. Now, super regionals in Omaha, should IU get that far, those are kind of a different animal. But as far as the Big Ten tournament and regionals go, it's great to have frontline pitching. It's great to have some of that pitching depth. But the nature of those tournaments are that everyone is going to get their pitching beat up during the week. There are just too many games you have to play, and if you're going to end up on the, getting to day 3, 4. 5 of these tournaments and or to get to the Sunday or Monday of a regional, you're going to be pretty thin on the mound if you get stretched out that far. And I use an offense that you absolutely do not want to see if you are thin on the mound, because they will really put a hurting on you. So I think it really bodes well for their opportunity to compete well, not just this coming week in Omaha, but also wherever they get sent for a regional.
Yeah, and something else I've noticed, if you look at their roster, 24 out of the 34 players on that roster are from the state of Indiana. And as a matter of fact, only 5 on the entire roster is from what I would call outside of the Midwest, either like Illinois or Wisconsin. They're all from right here. So it not only can you build a program now, it seems to be, but you can do it with homegrown products.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, a detractor might say, well, but okay, so, Indiana's having a lot of success. They won the Big Ten, but, can you win a national title, for example, with just kind of homegrown products here? And for that, I would point to a program like Louisville, which isn't that far away from IU. And that's a program that I think, because they're in the ACC, I think there's an assumption that, look, they recruit the South, they recruit the Eastern Seaboard, and that's true to a certain degree. They are able to go into those areas and get players because of the success they've had. But that's largely a Midwestern program. They're recruiting a lot of kids from Indiana, a lot of kids from Kentucky, a lot of kids from Ohio. They've got some Wisconsin kids on that roster. So they are not, a program that's kind of gone out of their geographic footprint to have success. They've got a lot of kids from that area. So, Louisville can do it. And granted, at this point, Louisville's had the success they've had, which allows them to recruit a higher caliber of kid than most of the rest of the programs in that geographic footprint. But yeah, that's just proof that you don't necessarily have to do something out of the ordinary recruiting-wise to have success at a place like Indiana or anywhere else in the Big Ten for that matter.
Talking with Joe Healy from Baseball America, and obviously this weekend Indiana had a big weekend. They wrap up a Big Ten championship, which going into the weekend they were a game and a half back of Michigan, a strong Michigan team with a very strong pitching staff, and thanks to some help from Nebraska, Indiana sweeps Rutgers and they're able to pull out a Big Ten championship. That's a big deal for any school, but especially for a school like Indiana, who's trying to assert themselves as a dominant program in the conference at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at this point, just with how consistent they've been, you go back to the end of Tracy Smith's tenure there before he left for Arizona State, and then Chris Lemonis, and now continue with Jeff Mercer. And at this point, Indiana, from a baseball standpoint, is the class of the Big Ten with how consistent they've been. You've had other programs that maybe, have had high highs, not to the extent that Indiana did by getting to Omaha, but they've had high highs for other programs. I mean, think about Illinois' 2015 season where they hosted a regional and won a home regional, and before being eliminated by Vanderbilt in the Super Regional. So other programs have had their moments in the sun, but Indiana's just been really, really, really consistent. So I think this is just another, brick in that foundation of making it the preeminent program from a baseball standpoint in the Big Ten. And then winning if you want to project it forward a little bit, then winning the conference opens up the door. Indiana could maybe, if things break right and they have to get some help, but winning the regular season title was a must if Indiana wants to kind of sneak in the back door to host. One of the ways in which it's been really helpful is the Big Ten is a better conference now, is that when you go into the Big Ten tournament, most of the games you're going to be playing in the Big Ten tournament are going to be quality games. You look at the RPIs, and I have it right here in front of me, Indiana at 30, Michigan 47, Illinois 22, Nebraska 35, Minnesota 65. The only team outside of the top 100 in RPI that's going to be there in Omaha is Ohio State at 136. So just about any wins you get in the Big Ten tournament are going to be positive wins on your resume. And if they can win a regular season title, win a tournament title, which is a tough ask, I realize, but if they can pull that off and get the RPI closer to 20 than it is to 30, if some other chaos happens, Indiana's got an outside shot to host. If you're asking me to bet, I bet on that probably not happening, and Indiana ends up as a 2 seed, probably in a place like Louisville. But there is a chance for it to happen, and it opened the door this weekend for that to play out.
Which is always a good thing. And what does it say about a program when they've lost their head coach twice in the last 5 years? Good head coaches, obviously, because Tracy Smith is off to Arizona State. Chris Lemonis is down in Mississippi. Mississippi State, I think. But when you lose a good head coach like that, and then now they're on their third head coach, but yet they are continuing to roll forward. Obviously, Jeff Mercer doing an unbelievable job in his first season, getting a Big Ten title back for Indiana. But that says a lot about the program itself when you're able to go through that kind of turmoil and change.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, it shows that they've done a good job hiring coaches. Because if you miss on a coaching hire, it doesn't take long for that to kind of shine through. So I think it shows that IU's done a really good job of bringing in the right head coaches to lead the program. And beyond that, I think it means that those head coaches, and this should not be a surprise for the success they had, I think it means that these coaches are recruiting the right kinds of players. You look at the Indiana roster this year, and it's, there were a lot of holdovers from, Chris Lemonis. I mean, it's obviously Mercer's first year, so there hasn't been a lot of time for there to be roster turnover, but, it's a team led by a bunch of guys who have been here. And I think that speaks to the fact that these guys are committed to the program. And they kind of have trust that, hey, this new head coach that was brought in this case, Jeff Mercer, is a guy that we can get behind, and let's play for him and let's play for each other. There was really no sign of these guys not being bought in to what Jeff Mercer and his staff was selling, and I think that's big, not only just from that standpoint, but also because it's clear that they were trying to do a little something different, particularly on offense. I mean, there's been a lot written about and talked about Jeff Mercer coming in and kind of changing the offensive approach of the IU lineup. And it would have been really easy for a lot of guys to be like, no, I don't really want to do that because I've had success doing this other thing. But it seems like the guys really bought into it, and we're kind of seeing the fruits of that labor with the way their offense has been able to roll. So it's sign of good hiring, of good culture, and bringing in the right players.
We're talking baseball with Joe Healy from Baseball America. Joe, Indiana heads off to the Big Ten tournament now to Omaha, where they'll play on Wednesday for the first time. But there's a lot of solid teams in the Big Ten tournament. You mentioned it's a tough ask for a team to win the conference and then turn around and win the conference tournament. I mean, you've got a lot of guys gunning for them. But this last weekend, Indiana was trying to win that Big Ten title, but there were other teams that were still in the hunt besides Michigan. I mean, Nebraska had an outside shot. Illinois and Minnesota were teams that were hoping for things to go their way, but there was more than one team just hoping for a title this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look down and you've got teams like Indiana and Illinois, for example, that have been really good all year. Michigan as well. And there's some teams that just have had kind of up and down. I'm thinking of a team like Minnesota. We had them ranked in the preseason, kind of based on the strength of Max Meyer and Patrick Fredrickson on that pitching staff, and Fredrickson wasn't as effective early in the year, and then he dealt with an injury, and now he's back and looking strong, and Max Meyer's been really good in that rotation. So that's a team that maybe at one point looked like they might be having a down year that seems to be playing some of its best baseball right now. Same is true with Nebraska. They've gone through some ups and downs, but they're coming off of winning their last series of the year, the weekend before that winning a series against a very talented Arizona State team. Then you look at a team like Iowa. They've really, the last couple of weeks have been really tough on them. I mean, they were in our field of 64 projection just a couple of weeks ago after they won a series with UC Irvine in a non-conference series at home. Things kind of fell apart for them down the stretch a little bit. Now they're in a position where they're going to have to win the Big Ten tournament to get in. But I think that's a regional quality club that just maybe doesn't have the regional quality numbers they would need to get in. So, that's another team that's dangerous. And then you really can go, down the line with even a team like Maryland, which really hasn't had a fantastic year. They've been a little bit up and down, but they've got a guy on Friday nights, which it won't be Friday night obviously in the Big Ten tournament, but usually on Friday nights, and then Hunter Parsons, who's just about as good as anybody in the Big Ten. And when you have a guy like that who can start you off in the winner's bracket of the Big Ten tournament, that puts you in a position to have success. And so there really aren't any teams you can overlook in this field. And again, that's just one of the ways the Big Ten has taken a step forward than maybe 10, 15 years ago. Any one of these teams can win this tournament. There's been a lot of teams that have been a little bit more inconsistent. But if I were for some reason to go live under a rock for the next week and I woke up and you told me that any one of the 8 teams in this field won it, I wouldn't have a hard time believing you.
And I know Indiana's probably obviously one of the favorites to win. Not the favorite necessarily, but one of the definite favorites. But can they? I don't think there's anything they can really do to hurt themselves in the Big Ten tournament as far as the NCAA coming the week after that.
No, yeah, I think they're pretty locked in where they are. I don't think they can really fall at all. Like I said, I laid out the scenario under which, like, maybe if you squint hard enough, you could see them hosting. But even if they go 0-2, they're going to be a solid 2 seed in a regional. They're going to be a really dangerous 2 seed. That's not the case with some of the other teams in the tournament. Michigan is one I'm watching for, just because Michigan has a really solid overall record, and they finished just a half game behind Indiana in the Big Ten standings, but otherwise their resume is a little bit thin. Their RPI sits at 47, which is right around where they need it to be. But some of their other metrics just really don't quite stack up. They're only 4-10 against teams in the top 50 of the RPI, and they don't have a series win against a team that's projected to be in a regional this year. So I think Michigan's a team that a lot of people, myself included, have kind of just assumed for a long time now they're going to get in. They'll be fine. And then when they were winning the Big Ten, as recently as at the start of the weekend, you kind of assumed, like, okay, even if those numbers are a little bit short, winning the Big Ten will be enough of a feather in their cap to get them in. But now that they didn't win the league, it kind of puts them in a precarious position. Ultimately, I'm going to bet on them, as talented as they are, doing enough in Omaha this week to get in. But if they go 0-2 out there, there's going to be a little bit of sweating for Michigan on Selection Monday.
And then, of course, you mentioned Louisville earlier, and I'll bring this up only because they will probably be meeting in the NCAA tournament. Louisville's probably a hosting spot and a potential landing spot for Indiana in the playoffs. But that's a team that they just played each other, and while it was a win for Louisville, it went 11 innings, and Indiana was right there. It could have gone either way.
Yeah, and that just shows you that Indiana, if that's where they end up, and you never know. Sometimes there are, with the way the bracket is put together, sometimes there are kind of indirect reasons why a team ends up somewhere else, because 2 teams in a regional couldn't play each other for one reason or other, so one team got bumped to a different regional. So you never know how those dominoes are going to fall. But Louisville seems like an obvious landing place for IU, and so I think that shows that Indiana can certainly play with them. The one thing, of course, you have to consider there as well, though, is that there's a very big difference between midweek baseball games and the games that get played on the weekend, or of course get played in the postseason. And that you're not seeing the top pitchers. You are seeing the best guys in the lineup, but you're not seeing the best pitching, and that's one of the biggest reasons why Louisville has done what they've done this year. Their rotation led by a couple guys in Reed Detmers, and Bobby Miller's been really good for them. Reed Detmers is kind of the headline guy out there, but he's been far from alone out there. So Nick Bennett's a solid guy they have out there. And they've got a deep bullpen, Michael Curie and Michael McAveen. They've got some pretty good pitching depth, but headlined, like I said, by Detmers, the front of the rotation. So those are guys you may not have seen as much of in a midweek game. So that's kind of the warning there, is don't read too much into that necessarily, but I think you can read into it that if Indiana does end up there, they're certainly not going to be out of their depth.
And we'll certainly look forward to that. And if you're not too busy, hopefully we can get you back on next week, as we'll be looking toward the NCAA tournament. Is the selections come on Sunday?
The selections come on Monday. So most of the conference tournaments wrap up Saturday or Sunday. And it's kind of a cool deal because the way the calendar breaks, that selection Monday is always on Memorial Day, which is kind of nice because folks are home more than they would be otherwise on a Monday. So it gives college baseball kind of has a unique opportunity to kind of be front and center on that Monday with everybody talking about the bracket. So yeah, Monday bracket show. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite days of the year. Obviously, there are no games on that Monday, but it's not too different than the basketball selection Sunday, where it does give you kind of a little bit of time to look at the bracket and talk about favorites and upsets and things like that. So it's always a lot of fun.
Well, we'll certainly see if we can get that worked out. Love to have you back on, Joe. Joe Healy from Baseball America. I can't thank you enough, man. Appreciate your expertise and your time.
Absolutely, Jim. Happy to do it.
Thank you so much. Joe Healy from Baseball America. We'll be back with more on Indiana Sports Beat right here from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat.
And I'm Justin Kalen with Indiana Sports Beat.
Justin, what's your favorite show?
It's got to be Indiana Sports Beat, but I'm not ever sure where to find it.
Well, you can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for it each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become one in a million.
All right, crew, let's get her dug.
Honey, want to give me a hand? I'm planting that tree, remember?
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 business days before any digging project, so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. This includes natural gas and petroleum pipelines, electric, communication cables, and water and sewer lines. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
This is former Indiana basketball player Greg Graham. Keep up with the Hoosiers on the Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
I didn't have no pharaoh, not even no place to go. And my dear mother left
Welcome
me
back to Indiana Sports Beat,
when
coming to you
I was
from the
young.
Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Hope you're having a good day. Not quite at the midpoint of the week. Big show today. Indiana Hall of Famer Brian Evans on the program, former Indiana basketball great. Big Ten Player of the Year. Member of the Big Ten Championship team. And that was after playing with the likes of Eric Anderson, Calbert Chaney, Greg Graham, Pat Graham, Damon Bailey, Todd Leary, Chris Reynolds, Jamal Meeks. Dude had he had some great guys to learn from. And obviously used it to his benefit. Ended up being a first-round draft pick by the Orlando Magic. Ironically, he played with Penny Hardaway, who was having a monster recruiting season for Memphis. I'll ask him about that. But Tim texted in and commented that during Trenton Watford's announcement ceremony, he had a Memphis hat on the table while they had no spots left. There was no way he was going there. You knew he wasn't going there. I didn't even watch it. I assume he had an IU hat on the table. I don't know. I don't know if he had 3 or 4 on there. Probably, of course, had Alabama on there. And, of course, LSU. Which is where he ended up. It's a strong-ass get for Will Wade. Hopefully he'll accomplish what he wants to accomplish and get to the level where he wants to get to. There was never a chance of him ending up at Indiana. He never even took an official visit to Indiana. And people say, well, he wasn't coming here because of his brother. He didn't want to follow in his brother's footsteps. What the heck does that matter? His brother played here years ago now. And it's not like I just don't see there's what shadow would he be playing in? He's not playing. He wouldn't have been playing in anybody's shadow, his brothers or otherwise. Playing for a different coach in a different time. There's no shadow. That's not why he didn't come to Indiana. He didn't come to Indiana for the reasons that he went to LSU. He thinks that's the best path available to him to reach the NBA. Memphis was no longer an available path. I'm not saying he would have gone there, but didn't have much of a choice because there was not a spot for him. I saw a lot of posts yesterday. There was one that had a list of 22 names that Indiana had offered, all with lines through them, with the exception of Trace Jackson Davis and Armand Franklin, who will be coming in the big two-man recruiting class coming in next year. And there's been a lot of talk. There's 2 open scholarships. Do you leave them open? They're not going to use them just to use them. That's a certainty. That gets back into the stuff that Tom Crean would get into, having players that you just didn't really need or want on in the roster. And so while Archie Miller is trying to continue a roster overhaul, adding players that are not exactly what you want is not what he's going to do. He's not going to do that with good reason. It is odd to have 2 open scholarships for Indiana. People will say, well, other teams do that. Kentucky do it. Well, Indiana's not Kentucky right now. They've got enough talent in the top 6, more talent in the top 6 than a team like Indiana has across the board. They can do that. The grad transfer is always an option, but not sure how that would work out with a player coming in for 1 year into this quote-unquote system. It doesn't seem like something that players grasp really quickly. We've seen it 2 years in a row where they have taken time to adapt to it. It was easier this past season because you had more returning players that were already ingrained in it. But nonetheless, those 2 scholarship spots probably will remain open. You never know. But I don't see anything changing that. I don't see any 11th hour offers unless something falls apart someplace else, which is always a possibility. Joey Brunk's a unique situation because he's a grad transfer, but he's got 2 years of eligibility. Very smart basketball player. Very smart. Wants to go to law school. Obviously, you got to have a good head on your shoulders to be able to withstand the rigors of that. So he's a thinker. That's always a good thing. Always a good thing. It'll make it easier to adjust into the new system. And having 2 years, well, obviously, much better than 1. Got a fine piece in Deron Davis. I've always loved Deron's game. Man, I wish he could have stayed healthy. Wished he could have stayed healthy. I love his attitude. He's there to play ball. And he'll get in there. He'll mix it up. He'll give you what he's got, injured or not. I'm a big fan of Deron Davis. Big fan of Deron Davis. What's the starting lineup going to be next year for Indiana basketball? A lot of people have different opinions on that. Part of that is because we don't know if Mr. Hunter is going to be available yet. That would certainly be a boost to Archie Miller and that team. He's an X factor. We haven't seen him. I saw him in high school, and he was a pretty daggone good player. He's got a few dimensions that he can add to that roster. Trace Jackson will obviously be a starter. Deron Davis will be a starter. Then you start And of course, Rob Finney at the point. Obviously a starter. Then you got to start going. You got Al Durham. You got Devontae Green. A lot of unanswered questions yet. We'll get to all that and more. We've got Brian Evans on the show today. Stay tuned. We're back with more here on Indiana Sports Beat from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat.
And I'm Justin Kalen with Indiana Sports Beat.
Justin, what's your favorite show?
It's got to be Indiana Sports Beat, but I'm not ever sure where to find it.
Well, you can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become 1 in a million.
All right, crew, let's get her dug.
Honey, want to give me a hand? I'm planting that tree, remember?
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 business days before any digging project, so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. This includes natural gas and petroleum pipelines, electric, communication cables, and water and sewer lines. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
Hey sports fans, this is Lily King. Make sure you tune into Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
This hour is brought to you by Sweetland Waste and Removal Service, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995.
your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jet airliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin yang, come along.
Well, welcome along to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Quayle. Thanks a lot for joining us, taking you wherever you're going. We appreciate you taking us along for the ride. Got Jake at the wheel, keeping everything on the track. Hope your day's off to a good start. We've got another great show in store for you. Indiana Hall of Famer, former basketball player Brian Evans on the program today. Looking forward to talking to Brian very soon. And also Mike Schumann from the Daily Hoosier will be with us. So we've got a lot to get to. As a matter of fact, we're going to get to it a little quicker than normal today. May keep Brian over a little bit. But so grateful to have Brian joining us. Like I said, Indiana Hall of Famer, and couldn't be happier to have Brian Evans on the program today.
Well, happy to join you guys. This will be fun.
Looking forward. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time. You're one of those players. Todd Leary's on the show each Friday, and we talk about recruiting a lot, and he's always laughing at those quote unquote recruiting experts, and your recruiting was kind of a perfect example of why he does that, because all these guys are ranked 5-star and this star, and you weren't really recruited heavily, but you end up being the Big Ten Player of the Year, IU Hall of Famer, playing the NBA. It's funny how these experts have things pegged so well right now, but it's not always the case.
No, you're right. I think I do think they've gotten better through the years. I mean, it's a real business for sure. But there's certain things they can't measure. I think that top tier guys, the 5-star guys, I mean, you're almost guaranteed a really good player. But some of those guys are going to lack heart and intensity and commitment. I mean, they're not all home runs, right? I mean, just because they're 5-star guys, they're basically at that age, they're 5-star ability. And then you get guys that, I would probably throw myself in that category. That I'd have given my right arm to play for Bob Knight at Indiana. And so when I got an opportunity to be there, I worked as hard as I could, and I listened the best that I could, and I gave everything I had to it. And I had a great coach that was, pushing me and driving me every day and not giving me days off. So it was kind of like a perfect storm. But I think I'm with Todd when it comes to, they overdo it now, and because it's become a business, it's just that, right? It's a big business.
Yeah, and you look back at the guys that you played with at Indiana, coming out of high school, I don't know how many of those guys would have been listed as 5-stars, but I know there was a whole bunch of guys that made it to the NBA on that team and were unbelievable players, which is, again, funny because, there was, 8 guys off of that era that came right before you, right after you, that probably played in the NBA?
Yeah, several guys for sure, and it was one of those things. I think Coach had won at such a high level that we were all watching the Steve Alford, 87 team, and recruiting for Coach in the state of Indiana was fish in a barrel at that time, and if he wanted you wanted him back, and you wanted to play here. So I mean. But still, we had a pretty cool culture where, guys like me, I came in there and certainly wasn't I don't even know if I would have been a 2-star recruit, to be honest. But, I know I didn't score 1,000 points in high school, and you think about Damon scored 3,000 points. I didn't score 1,000, and but at the same time, I went to practice and I played against Calvert Cheney, and Alan Henderson, we're in the same class, but it was invaluable stuff, so to go and have to lace them up every day and know that you're gonna be guarding and get guarded by, the College Player of the Year. So all of those things, and Bob Knight calling the shots really helped somebody like me improve the way that I did.
And you talk about the guys you played against, and I mentioned a minute ago how many guys were on that team that just turned out to be unbelievably exceptional. Todd Leary, Calvert Chaney, Damon Bailey, Pat Graham, Eric Anderson. But I don't know if he may have been before you. I can't remember, but there was crossover there. But so many guys, Nover, that had to make some battles in practice. I mean, just wars, which had to make you guys incredibly good from that standpoint alone.
Yeah, that's a lot of great players, and a lot of those guys, Eric included. He was a senior my redshirt freshman year, so I did get to play with him, and the practices they were super competitive, and coaches, though he set it up so practice was more challenging and more difficult than the game, and that's easy to say that. And I coached my daughter's 4th grade team this past winter, and I can promise you that the practices were not as difficult as the games. So it's easy to say that you're going to do that, but Coach Knight really did create that environment. So it was intense, and when I got there, that's the only way I knew. I didn't know it was any different. So we had some really good teams those first few years, and as we tapered off a little bit, maybe my last 2 years, and didn't have the same type of success, and I saw then the practices changed. But man, it was intense, and if you were going to beat somebody out and win a spot, you were beating out a pro basketball player to get some playing time.
And how much does that go into making the team great? I mean, you guys, you were on, no doubt, to me, arguably the best team to not win a national championship. Is incredible. Just some bad luck happened at the wrong time. But man, I just think back to those teams were unbelievably good. But we talk about these battles in practice. How far did that go to making you guys as good as you were?
Well, again, I'll start off by saying when I got, that's all I knew. I just remember thinking, man, this is no joke. I can't believe how difficult practice is. I was exhausted, and Coach was on us. He never let up, and that's I love him for that. Looking back on how he never took a day off, and so he was pushing us, and it was really competitive. And we didn't. I still think about like those Michigan teams of the Fab Five, and a couple of the Ohio State teams with Jimmy Jackson, and we still weren't the most talented team. I mean, we had a lot of guys that played pro basketball, but we didn't have that. We didn't have NBA All-Star talent. But we found a way to play together, and we were a good team. I mean, we were the best team in the conference, but we weren't shoo-ins to play in the NBA by any means.
Yeah, I remember those Fab Five era. Those guys didn't win the Big Ten. Indiana did. Your Indiana teams won the Big Ten against those guys.
That's right. I think I'm very proud of that. I watched that 30 for 30 on the Fab Five, and I'm screaming from the mountaintop. Unfortunately, only my wife and kids can hear me screaming in the living room when I'm trying to tell everybody that Michigan never won a Big Ten title. Nobody's listening.
There's a lot of Hoosier Nation that was listening, I promise you. They were probably shouting the same thing. That's probably why they couldn't hear you, because they're all yelling the same thing. But that in and of itself is a testament to team basketball and how important it is to have a team more than it is to have superstars. Because you look at today, the five stars, these one and dones.
No, you're right. No, you're right. And can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, you can hear me. Okay. I think it starts with, so you got a lot of talent, who is that top guy on your team? Who is the best player that you have? Because that matters, and our best player was Calvert Chaney. And Calvert Chaney was as good of a leader. I mean, he was a quiet leader. He didn't have a lot to say, but he was an unselfish guy. And he cared more about the team. Calvert, as great as he was, and he ran away with the, Player of the Year, the Wooden Award, obviously the Big Ten Player of the Year. And he knew that those awards would take care of themselves if his team won. And he really did. It's easy to say that, but that's really the way he played, and he personified that every single day, where our best player cared more about our team than he did himself. And that's a huge deal. So who's your best player? And if that guy is thinking it all about himself and thinking all about his NBA potential, that can hurt a team. And, and we didn't have that, because if Calvert had a guy, he caught the ball in the wing and he had somebody recovering to him, and he saw me in the corner, even though I was a freshman, and he thought I could make that shot, I got the ball. He delivered the ball to the next guy, and he trusted his teammates, and it's underappreciated for sure. And so we had guys like that. I mean, when your best player, makes me think of the San Antonio Spurs and Tim Duncan, who I love. I was a teammate of his on a USA team, and he was much like Calvert, where he's the best player out there. There's no question. Nobody could question that, but he's the best teammate out there as well. And when you have that, you win, and you win big.
Is that part of what makes them the best players? Because not only are they athletically and talented in what they do, but mentally being able to look for the win, not so much the accolades.
Well, I sure think so. I mean, I was around a couple really good ones, and Calvert was at the top of the list. Tim Duncan was right there, where I played on a USA team going into my senior year at IU, and it was Tim, and it was Ray Allen and Allen Iverson, and it was a really good team. And the best player was Tim, and he didn't care if he came off the bench or played 15 minutes. He dominated the game, but he was a team guy. And Calvert was like that. I mean, Calvert ran away with the Player of the Year awards that year, and if you saw us on a road trip or you saw us having dinner, I mean, there was nothing showy about that guy. He was one of the 12 guys on the team, and I think when you have a leader like that, it's a big deal.
I had another teammate of yours on not too long ago. Greg Graham was on with us, and one of the things that he talked about was the lack of an IU presence on the current staff. It's not a knock on the staff, but just an observation. But there was just not an IU presence there, really. Derek Elston's on there, but he's not really part of the immediate assistant coach's staff. And he thinks that really hurts the program. What do you think that's going to take for Indiana? Because they're not, right now, today, Indiana's not the Indiana of old. What's it going to take for them to get back to those, at least that type of era?
That's a tough question. I was an IU basketball fan my whole life, and somehow got invited to go play there at the 11th hour. And, had a great experience, and it's a funny deal because then I go straight back to being a fan, right? And I've stayed a fan for the last 22 years since I've been gone, and I don't have all the answers, and I love the program, and I think it's because I'm so much of a diehard fan that I root for Archie. I mean, I know he's younger than me, right? But I look at him and I'm rooting so hard for those guys, and I just hope they're doing the right things. I don't know if the answer is they need an IU guy on staff. I don't know what that means. I understand that Greg would feel that way. I just don't know. I love the program. I like to see him get it back to where we win, consistently year in and year out. And because I don't live that life, and I'm not on that staff, and I'm not in college basketball, I can't even say that I know what it takes to do that. And I know it's a tough job. I mean, and that's why we pay those guys so much money. That ain't easy, and they're up against it big time. And so, our program had fallen off a lot in the last several years, and trying to rebuild that, I know it's a tough job.
It certainly is. Hey, Brian, let's hold on. We're going to like to carry this over to the next break if you'll hold on to it with us. We've got a lot more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Back with more Brian Evans right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make it tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. It's Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat.
And I'm Justin Kalen with Indiana Sports Beat.
Justin, what's your favorite show?
It's got to be Indiana Sports Beat, but I'm not ever sure where to find it.
Well, you can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become one in a million.
All right, crew, let's get her dug.
Honey, want to give me a hand? I'm planting that tree, remember?
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 business days before any digging project, so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. This includes natural gas and petroleum pipelines, electric, communication cables, and water and sewer lines. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
Hi, this is AJ Moye, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, Indiana Sports Beat, and we're very fortunate to have on Indiana Hall of Famer, former basketball player Brian Evans. And one of the things that really rings true, though, you talk about being a fan, and whether it's Greg, Graham, or Todd, you can tell that comes through. They're not just former players; they're actually fans still to this day of the program. And I wonder if is that still there with some of these high school kids right now.
I don't know. That's another. Hey, you pose great questions. I don't know the answer to that one. I think so much has changed. The kids have changed. You know, I think about the Virginia team this year, who I just enjoyed watching play, and I love the way that the brand of basketball and those guys really, to me, seem like they played for one another. and they played for the name on the front of the jersey versus the back. And I'm a sucker for that stuff, right? And I think the casual, the typical Indiana fan would agree with me. That's what we love, right? And I don't know that's what we had last year. I don't know that that's what we were watching. But I loved watching that team. Yet they go win a title, and there's probably one solid pro prospect on that team. DeAndre Hunter is probably the solid pro prospect who's a lottery pick. And, 20 years ago when I played, if you weren't a lottery pick, you'd come back to school to try to boost that, your draft status. And nowadays, it's totally different. Everybody leaves. James Blackman leaves. He's not going to be drafted, but he leaves. I don't understand that. I still don't understand. Why would you leave Bloomington? It's the greatest place. It's the greatest school. I had so much fun when I was there. I don't understand. If I'd had a sixth year, I'd have gone back again. I just don't understand where these guys think they're going. You're in a race to the D-League. You're in a race to play in the third division in Sweden. I mean, where are you going? There's nothing better than Bloomington, Indiana, and playing in Assembly Hall in front of those fans. I have a hard time understanding what's going on in college, to be real honest with you. Guys, and I really love Kyle Guy. I love the way he plays. I know his family. My daughters play volleyball with his sister, and the game has changed. He's pressured to go. I mean, he's being told, the agents, everyone just pushing him out of there. I think he loved his experience there. Everything has changed when it comes to that. And you have to be, everyone believes they got to be their own corporation and their own business and build their own brand. When I hear these NBA guys talking about their brand, I still think about Coach Knight. Like if you would have said that you were trying to build your brand, I mean, are you kidding me? You'd have been done in you'd have never suited up again. It wasn't about us. It was about the program. It was about our team, and it was about our teammates. And so all of that's changed, and that's no fun.
And you mentioned Kyle Guy and how much you enjoyed watching Virginia. Man, that's one that certainly got away, not just from Indiana, but from a lot of schools here, but specifically from Indiana. That's one that they missed on.
And you know what? The listeners may not like this, but I've got super juicy details regarding that I cannot share, unfortunately, and really disappointing, because he's a guy that we should have had. No pun intended.
Well, feel free to share them with me off air. I won't share them.
His folks and his grandfather, huge Indiana fans, and it's just a shame that he didn't play in Assembly Hall and wear pinstripes. I mean, it's a shame.
It really is. I mean, again, because I say that's another one that got away, and I go back to the having all these IU kids, and another thing, back when you guys were playing, the amount of kids on the roster that were from Indiana, and if they weren't from Indiana, they were from Champaign or just around Illinois or close by. It was crazy.
There you go. Let me throw this one at you. So 1991-92, my first year that I redshirted, we had 13 guys from Indiana and three guys from Illinois, and they were Eric Anderson, Chris Reynolds from Peoria, and Jamal Meeks from, outside of Chicago. So we had two Chicago guys and a Peoria guy, and everybody else was Indiana. By the time I left 5 years later, it was me and maybe one other Indiana kid, maybe two, and everybody else was Florida, Louisiana, Texas, California, and I was the captain of these teams, and we had guys that didn't know that we hated Purdue. They didn't know that we hated Kentucky. They didn't understand anything what was going on, and it was tough, to lead teams like that. Like, nobody had to tell me Calvert didn't have to tell me, or Eric Anderson didn't have to tell me that I was supposed to hate Purdue. I already knew. So it was so much different by the time I left there. So that whole transition, it still happened. It happened under Coach Knight's watch. I mean, the roster really turned over, and it was a lot of out-of-state kids.
What led to that monumental shift, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it could have been a shortage of talent in the state. I really don't know. All I know is we were getting All-Americans. Keep in mind, these guys were, Neil Reed was a McDonald's All-American out of Louisiana, even though he had lived in Indiana. Andre Patterson, Texas, McDonald's All-American. Charlie Miller was a, kind of right there, McDonald's All-American-ish player out of Miami. And this was a very high-ranked recruiting class that came in, so it's not like he wasn't getting players. He was choosing guys. That was a big-time recruiting class that came in, but they weren't Indiana guys, and they struggled. I mean, they struggled, and it was tough to lead them. I mean, we had guys that didn't understand. They didn't understand what it was going to be like to play for him, and that was my job, is to get them in the preseason to understand how difficult it was going to be, and prep them for what a season is going to be like. And we were okay. I mean, these are tournament teams, by the way. I'm talking about it like we were epic failures. We weren't. By our standards now, we were a really good team. We finished tied for second in the Big Ten, and made the NCAA tournament. We'd have killed for that season this year, right? I mean, killed for it.
Absolutely, and it's funny you mentioned that shift, that paradigm of shifting players, because about that time also for the rest of Coach Knight's career at Indiana, he never got past the second round in the NCAA tournament.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the recruiting. I think if you asked Coach, I don't think he liked his staff at that point in time. I don't think his staff was necessarily getting it done. I don't think he was going out and maybe recruiting quite as hard as he used to. I don't know the answer to that. That's a guess. But again, he was pulling in guys that you still get Dane Fife. I mean, those are Luke Recker. Those are McDonald's All-Americans. It's not like those were bad recruiting classes. Jason Collier, McDonald's All-American.
Jared Jeffries.
And when you get those guys, I think this ties us back up to the very first question you asked me. When you get those guys, it does not mean you're going to win titles. It's, there's still a lot of other parts that go into it. How bad do you want it? How tough are you? And certainly playing for Coach Knight, how tough are you? That's a big deal. That's a big question. And if you don't have the kind of toughness or heart to play for him, it doesn't matter how good you are.
And everything you've talked about kind of leads me, in the early part of your NBA career, you were with Orlando. You were the first round pick for the Magic, and you were on the same team with Penny Hardaway, right?
Yeah.
He's having, you talk about recruiting of Fab Five type of year. He's having that right now at Memphis. It's unbelievable what he's bringing in there right now. Doesn't mean that there's going to be winning, but that's a hell of a recruiting class that he's got there.
Yeah, I don't follow it super closely. I mean, I think I read an article, the other day that his class is catapulted to number one, and he's a likable guy. I think the key for him is there's so much right now, like, he's coming from that AAU world, and he was coaching a lot of these kids, and he still had a lot of bling on his game, right? I mean, he was when I got there to Orlando, I mean, he was a big star. He was those Chris Rock commercials. I mean, Little Penny was a big deal, and a lot of people remember that. But his closeness to the AAU program, I think, has really helped him. He's known these kids. He's coached a bunch of them. Anybody from Tennessee, bordering states. He was coaching a AAU team that all these guys went and played for. So he had a leg up there. And then you get a little bit of momentum, right? He gets 2 or 3 guys, and the next 2 or 3 are trying to create that super team. And because all these young guys, they see what goes on in the NBA. When they watch Durant go and join the Warriors, they see that stuff, right? And so I think they go, we're all going there. Let's all go play at Memphis. And Penny will do a good job. But you know what? Let's give it 2 years and look back and let's see what they do. Because these are also kids that now you got to do it every year. I mean, ask Calipari, ask Krzyzewski. You got to when you go that route and recruit that type of kid, you got to get the next group of them too, because these guys are going to be gone.
Absolutely.
I mean, we got James Blackman leaving early. We've got guys that are leaving early that are not getting drafted. So the ones that are these 5-star blue chips, they're gone.
they're going to be there for, it's going to be a Romeo experience.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's the people around them or if their heads are getting filled with things that are not really in their best interest, but you see it happen a lot, and they end up kind of paying the price sometimes.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is, and I don't know where all these guys get advice, but there's not a lot of open spots, right? That's a big boy league. They're pros, and they're. You join a roster. If you're a first-round pick, you get a 2-year deal with a team option for the 3rd year. Anybody that's not being drafted in that first round, they're not on that team. And there's a bunch of dogs that are fighting for those spots. And so I think these guys come in kind of soft, and they don't understand how much it is a man's league. They think they're going to just waltz in there, but how many retirement press conferences do you see every year? Very few.
Yeah.
No one retires. You kind of get run out of that league.
You just go away.
Rosters run out of spots. There's very few people have that retirement press conference. Even the best players are still trying to get squeeze another year out. But you got all these young guys every year that are coming in and they're going pro. I mean, we had a guy in our, I don't want to name any names, but we've got guys that average 5 points a game that are going to, send out feelers for the NBA. I mean, that's how far out of whack this thing has become. You've got non-starters at a program that didn't make the tournament that want to gauge their potential to go into the draft. I mean, if that system's not broken, I don't know what is.
Does that also say that their head's not where it should be, especially when you're a team that didn't succeed, like you mentioned, and that obviously they were a part of that? Is their head not where it needs to be on being better where they are right now?
Oh, I think so. 100%. I don't know if these guys just dream about playing in that league so much that they're blinded by that. I don't know, because it makes no sense. You're not leading your team to victories. You're averaging 7 or 8 points a game. You don't start, and you think that, so it's an ego thing, right? Because then you get to make that announcement. Because all you have to have is a Twitter account to say that I'm going to make your announcement. I'm going to go and, put my name in for the NBA draft. I'm going to put my name in. And I just can't believe how different this is. Because if anybody had done that playing for the guy that I played for, he'd come to your apartment and pack your bag for you. You would never play there again, which is funny. I mean, it's the way. So I know that there's a lot of old school in me because I love him and I believe in the way he approached it. And I really, when you're playing for a university and they're giving you an education, it wasn't about getting paid. And now that, that's the hot topic is these guys deserve money. Nobody gave us anything. In fact, he used to go visit professors from time to time and make certain that they weren't giving us a break. But in fact, he'd go to my professor and say, give him a hard time. I give Brian a hard time every day. Give him a hard time. He likes it. And it's so much different than what these guys are going through. They're just, and so, time it's 20 years ago, but it seems like a million.
Yeah, and you've got all the stuff that went on with the FBI investigation, with the shoe companies paying all these people. And a thing that I found troubling is yesterday you had Trendon Watford committing to LSU, which is obviously coached by a coach that was caught on wiretaps, saying things that probably not kosher to what's going on in the NCAA today.
I didn't catch that, and I've been kind of tracking that kid. I met him when he was just a little guy. 10 years ago. I didn't know that he had committed today. That bums me out that he didn't come to Bloomington. Sounds like he's a good player. I saw his list of who he was considering, and I thought, well, how in the world can you go to LSU right now? But that just speaks. That tells a story. I have no idea what's going on. Everything has changed. It makes no sense. Nobody would have gone to LSU 20 years ago after all of that took place. That would be the last place you'd go. You'd take him off your list immediately. Yet, there he goes. So the landscape has changed,
and I sound like I sound like an old dinosaur.
No, actually, I mean, I think a lot of people share your opinion. I do, and I think there's plenty of people that do. There are people that obviously don't, unfortunately, and that's a sad indictment on society, I think, and maybe the game, but just probably society in general.
Well, I still tune in and watch it. I love it. I love that you're playing for a university, and it's sad that some of these guys that are being fast-tracked to the NBA, you question their desire, you question their heart, how bad because they're being forced to go to school. I mean, they wanted to go to the NBA, but the rules said they couldn't do it. Man, we're rooting for them like crazy, and it's like we want them to want it more than they want it, and that kind of sucks. But at the end of the day, when it's March Madness time, I'm not missing a minute. I'm watching it. I love it. This tournament, I think this past tournament might be the best one I've ever seen.
Yeah, I
so
agree.
Even though we have all these guys that are trying to defect to the NBA, and whether they should or not, at the end of the day, it's still a great brand of basketball. I love watching it.
Man, I could go on with you all day. You've been one of my favorite interviews, to be honest. This has been great. I could just shut up and let you talk all day, which I'm sure most people would appreciate anyway. But I'd love to be able to talk about your wife as a former volleyball player at Indiana. I'd love to talk to you about that in the future. There's such a connection between the IU basketball program and the volleyball program. It's kind of weird.
Oh, with like Benson and
just all kinds. Yeah, all kinds of connections. Just a great one at that. But look forward to that.
Oh, we love it. We go down. Well, we saw you down there, but my wife got a story, not all that dissimilar from mine, where she was a walk-on actually, and her first couple months on campus earned a scholarship and earned it all 4 years, and so I love her story. She dug it out of the ground the hard way, and kind of shares my views on some of these things. And I got 3 daughters and a son, but all the girls are, they're following in their mother's footsteps. They all love volleyball. Nobody's into the hoops. My son, to be determined. He's almost 8. He's more of an ex-boxer than he is a hooper at this point in time, but we'll see.
Brian, I cannot thank you enough, man. It's been a pleasure to get to talk to you today, and I really, really appreciate it.
Hey, listen, I run my mouth. You call me anytime, man. I'm happy to come on the show. And if you're a friend of Todd's, you're a friend of mine. He was a great teammate back in the day. And, I know that I probably sound like a broken record because he and I probably think a lot alike. Todd's a great dude, and I'm rooting for him. And you just call me anytime, man. You shoot me a text, I'll come on your show.
Brian, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much. Tell the family I said hello, and you guys have a great night.
We'll do it. Have a good one. We'll talk to you.
Thank you. Brian Evans, Indiana Hall of Famer, former Indiana basketball player. Man, I could have literally gone all day with him. Incredible. That may be the best interview we've had to date. But we've got a lot more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat. Stay tuned. I'll be right back with more right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat.
And I'm Justin Kalen with Indiana Sports Beat.
Justin, what's your favorite show?
It's got to be Indiana Sports Beat, but I'm not ever sure where to find it.
Well, you can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become one in a million.
All right, crew, let's get her dug.
Honey, want to give me a hand? I'm planting that tree, remember?
No matter how large or small your digging project may be, no matter how urban or rural, you must always call 811 before any digging project. 811 is our national one-call number, alerting your local utility companies to come out and mark any lines they have near your dig site. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 business days before any digging project, so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. This includes natural gas and petroleum pipelines, electric, communication cables, and water and sewer lines. So before you do this or this, make sure you do this. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811. Brought to you by Common Ground Alliance.
This is former Indiana basketball player Greg Green. Keep up with the Hoosiers on Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville with hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer. Pizza, burgers, beer. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle with you as always. Joined now by a friend of the show, Mike Schumann from the DailyHoosier.com. Mike, how are you, man?
Doing great, Jim. How are you doing this morning?
Good. Got to cut you a little short today, man. Brian Evans, he's a talker.
Yeah. I guess I heard of him. I guess I'll let that go this time.
It was a fantastic interview. He was just great.
Yeah, he's one of my claims to fame when I was in Bloomington. He and I were there at the same time, and he would occasionally show up at our parties. I think it was a friend of a friend situation. I'll always remember one time when he showed up, a kid that was still in high school, went to my high school. I saw him run to the phone and call his parents to say that Brian Evans was at the party. So that gives you a sense of his stature when he was at IU.
Well, he wasn't too far off, man. He went on to become a first-round draft pick.
Yep.
So, reason to. But, great interview, though. And it's always good to hear those perspectives from the guys that have been in the trenches and some interesting stuff there. And he did a great job of really articulating what he was thinking.
Yeah, he's probably one of the more underappreciated players throughout the history of IU, in my opinion. Really, came from nowhere too. Really neat story. I think, in today's recruiting era, probably would have had people questioning, whether or not, he was the right guy to come to IU, but just epitomized, what hard work and dedication to a system and a program is all about, and became an IU Hall of Famer. So really neat story, and by all accounts, a great guy too.
And that's the epitome of player development too. I mean, he self-professed said he was probably out of high school, but that is not what he ended up being. But again, that's playing 4 years and learning and developing, and man, did he ever! But certainly blossomed. Great to have him on. Lot going on, not a lot going on, but recruiting always in the news, and obviously Indiana's efforts have now switched to 2020. The most recent, I'm not even going to say miss, because Indiana was never even in the hunt truly for Trenton Watford, who chose LSU, which I've just always looked at that and just kind of shook my head. Anybody that would go to LSU right now, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's an odd choice to me. I truly, I could be naive saying this, but I truly don't think there's anything nefarious going on. I've just never heard that kind of stuff about the Watford family.
I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just saying it's odd to go there just because there's no damn way an NCAA investigation is not forthcoming.
Right. No, I know you're not either. It's just, the same concept. It's like, if all that cloud is hanging over your head, and you've got, by all accounts, other good options like Alabama or Memphis, or even if he wasn't considering Indiana, the kid could have gone pretty much wherever he wanted. I just don't see the obsession with LSU. It's not a blue blood program by any means. It's not a somewhere that kids are clamoring to go. But obviously he was, and I hope it works out well for him. Maybe whatever trouble Will Wade got into, maybe it was an eye opener. I don't know what he said to convince Watford that whatever's going on is nothing to worry about, but it obviously worked, and on we go, as you said, to 2020.
Well, I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, Will Wade has he's seen as a much the best path to the NBA for Christian or Trendon, because Memphis was no longer an option. There was no room. There's no room at the end, man. So he didn't really have a choice. He was not going to Memphis. And if the best path to the NBA is what he was looking for, that Indiana is obviously not. He's in the same group with everybody else that has chosen that not to be the case either. And then Alabama, not really a big driver of talent to the NBA. So his list option, I guess, is LSU, unfortunately, but that's just how it is. And so it is what it is. Wish him the best of luck and hope it works out for him and he gets to do exactly what he wants to do.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting career to watch too, because in my opinion, with my untrained eye, I don't see like a slam dunk one and done with his game. He has the same overarching limitation that his brother does or did, that he's not super athletic, so he's going to have to rely on his basketball skills, being so elite that the scouts can overlook, what I would call an average athlete. And he is more skilled than his brother, and I think he's got a better shot than his brother. But it goes back to his decision. If he's hyper focused on the NBA and being one and done, I hope that he can get that development at LSU, because he's going to need to develop, and he's going to need to eliminate some doubts to really make himself a firm, lottery pick type of guy. And maybe that's not even important to him. Maybe it's just, get drafted and go on. But with his brother's own experience trying to make it professionally, I think he surely sees how hard it is. And so, I think development's going to be really key for him, and he's going to have to eliminate some doubts here in the next year or two.
Well, and funny you bring up development is something that I've talked about, and I think, in my opinion, and I know it's not a popular opinion among a lot of Indiana fans, but I think the lack of development of players to the NBA is a big major reason why Indiana is 2 for 22 in these offers for that class. Most of those guys, 90% of those guys on that list, getting the NBA is what they want to do. And, it's just my opinion that Indiana is not viewed that way right now. And I'm not sure that Archie Miller's viewed that way right now because, to my knowledge, he's never sent a player that he's recruited to the NBA up until this moment.
Yeah, and I'm glad you kind of included both aspects there, because it's not just Miller and it's not just Indiana. It's a combination of both. I just think once you start recruiting outside the state, I don't think IU has the clout or the cachet that we'd like it to right now, unfortunately, and that's just a harsh reality. I think if you listen to these kids talk about the schools that they're considering, IU is just another school, and somehow that they're going to have to overcome that. And the obvious way is to start sending kids to the league. Another obvious way is to start having more success than back-to-back NIT runs. It's people may not like when you say it, but sometimes you just have to speak in terms of facts, and that's just where we are right now.
Yeah, and I think Brian Evans, going back to him, he talked about how they're a fan, and they're a fan of Indiana, and they still are. They were a fan then, and they're a fan now, and they were there, for 3-4 years. They were there for 4 years. Calbert Chaney was there for 4 years. Brian Evans was there for 4 years. First round draft picks, but they were there for 4 years and developing their game, and it's not that now. And he also talked about that these guys are now being pushed to the NBA. And when people say that Romeo's not ready, I just laugh at that, because I asked the question, what is he not ready for? What is he not ready for? To go get the best training that he could possibly get, because the NBA is going to coach him and train him in a much better way than he can get in college.
Right. I mean, the only way that not ready is even relevant anymore is more on the kind of the maturity side of things. If a kid is just, not ready mentally to handle the competition and the rigors and the, playing with grown men, I can see that, where more time in college can help them, mentally prepare. But from a game perspective, if you see a guy like Langford that has the raw talent, whose strengths to their game translate very well to the NBA, not ready is completely irrelevant. And I'm with you. I'm to the point where I just laugh and kind of roll my eyes when people say it anymore, because it's, we're past that era.
Yeah, and of course he could benefit from a maturity standpoint of staying another year. That goes without saying. There's no doubt. But like Brian said, they're pushed into this. He's going to get drafted no matter what. And it's what you call market value. It's what is your car worth? Well, it's whatever you can get for it. Well, he's going to be a first-round draft pick this year. So ready or not, here he comes. And so that's just facts are facts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's going to be, I don't think he would do himself much good by coming back. I mean, to your initial point, people act like players can't develop in the professional ranks. What you're effectively doing is putting down the books and focusing full time on your game. So if you just look at it that way, you have a better opportunity to develop. Now, by the same time, you have a higher likelihood of ending up in the G League or wherever. But guess what? Players develop there too. I mean, look at Thomas Bryant's career so far. I mean, he bounced back and forth, hardly did anything his first year in the NBA. Now he's a fixture in his second year. Guess what? He developed, and that can happen too. So, everybody was saying that about him too. Should have stayed. Not ready, but he proved everybody wrong. And so, I don't know when those notions are going to die. I mean, I grew up in the Brian Evans era. I saw everybody stay for 4 years, but I've come to accept that, that's just not the reality anymore for everyone. There's still the vast majority of guys are 4-year players, but we just need to get over the fact that the elite players are not going to stay for 4 years.
Absolutely. 30 seconds left. Anything the people need to know about at thedailyhoosier.com?
Just, obviously, like everybody else this time of year, focused on recruiting. I think that, all attention is turned to 2020 to see what Archie can do. That everything's talking about the recruiting quote unquote misses right now, but there's a lot of great opportunities in 2020. We're not looking at, elite, 5 stars like Keon Brooks and Trace Jackson Davis within the state, but there's a lot of great talent. There's the type of kids that you can build a program around and have 4-year guys that can, change the narrative.
Absolutely. Mike Schumann from the dailyhoosier.com. You can check out complete free IU content right there. Mike, thank you for joining us, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim. Have a great one.
You bet. That's going to wrap it up for today. I appreciate you joining us. Indiana Sports Beat back tomorrow with more. Look out for Jamal Meeks, maybe. Hey, we got a lot more coming. But that's going to wrap it up for today. From the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, for Jake, I'm Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio.